Welcome to Troutwood Live. I'm Gene and Natali with Troutwood. Every company and every person has a story. Each week we host a guest from a company in the S&P 500, discuss that company, our guest's career, and their personal story. Today's guest lives in Pittsburgh and works for a company based in San Jose, Cisco. We're going to be discussing diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Nishan Williams, welcome to Troutwood Live.
Thanks for having me, Gene. I'm so excited to be here, and hi to everybody out there that can see me.
Nishan, it's mutual. And Nishan, your formal role at Cisco, you're the Director of Strategy and Planning. Before we dive into things, just would love to hear a little bit about yourself, a brief background.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been with Cisco my entire professional career. I grew up in Pittsburgh, went to Penn State. So it's been 14 years at Cisco, which has been amazing. And it feels like I've worked for multiple different companies along the way within the big Cisco arm. I've lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., and been in Pittsburgh, back in Pittsburgh since 2013. And just excited to be here and talk about Cisco and something that's really passionate to me, which is diversity and inclusion as well.
Nishan, I love Pittsburgh to Penn State, a bunch of cities, but all that whole time at Cisco. That's a good story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we dive into your presentation, I'm going to jump over to the Troutwood Map, and we're going to give everyone watching just a visual of Cisco systems. So as you look at this map, remember Nishan is in Pittsburgh, so on the East Coast. Cisco is on the West Coast, and this is one of those great things that is happening where you can work all around the world. Fun fact on Cisco, the company's name was derived from the city name of San Francisco. As we dive in closer, you'll see this quote in Nishan's presentation: between hope and possible, there's a bridge. Cisco is a company that has impacted millions of people, not just through their work, but through their charitable efforts as well. Nishan, before we dive into your presentation, because you and I were talking beforehand, I'm going to just pull our audience to the Explore Careers, because this was really cool. And Nishan, you're a dad.
That's right. Dad of two.
Dad of two. Congratulations. I love seeing a website, and for everyone listening just to the audio, that says, "My new job, life as a working dad, find your path." Cisco is a company with 75,000 employees, and this is an excellent website to explore careers and locations. Nishan, how old are your kids, to put some perspective around that?
Yeah, they're new. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old. So I'm busy, as you know, Gene, but it's the most rewarding thing we do and why we do what we do professionally as well. So
100%. And I think that makes it relatable for the students watching. Nishan, let's dive into your presentation. I've got it up on my screen, and you are going to just kind of be clicking me through as we go across the slides.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Gene. I appreciate everybody having me. As again, I said, Nishan Williams, I'm the Director of Strategy and Planning for our East Coast commercial operation within Cisco. And what I would love to talk to you guys about today is just a little bit of background on Cisco and myself and the journey within Cisco, but then something that's really passionate to me, both professionally and personally, which is a focus on diversity and inclusion. And so we'll talk about that a little bit once we get through knowing who Cisco is and what we do in the industry, and then why that's such an important focus, not only just for Cisco, but for so many companies around the globe. And so if we jump to the next slide, Gene, you'll see kind of the history of Cisco. And so who is Cisco? At the very infancy of Cisco's product portfolio, we're a technology company that sold routers and switches. So it was founded in 1984. And these routers and switches allow different computers and networks to communicate together. So we have these big things, switches, that we put in between the different computers, and they all connect together, and they can share information and data amongst one another. And then we expand a little further and we say, how do we get different companies to be able to talk to each other together that maybe aren't in the same building? And that's when routing comes into play, where we connect those dots around the globe. But then even further comes what we all seem like, it seems like is so commonplace to us, which is the internet. And Cisco really started to boom as a company with the founding of the internet and supporting the infrastructure that's required to allow us to all communicate. I know for me, I think of the internet as kind of a big cloud that I can't necessarily see, but behind that cloud is a lot of technology infrastructure that allows us to be able to buy things online, to share information, to do research for school. All those things allow us to, all the infrastructure allows us to be able to access those things that we have found so near and dear to our hearts, especially in today's world in 2021. Since then, Cisco has then built on additional portfolio pieces. So as you all know, we all are on the road and moving around, and we're working off our mobile phones and our iPads. And so it's important to connect securely. So we have security products that make sure that we can do things safely when we're accessing those resources. And also our collaboration portfolios are another big piece of what Cisco does. We have a portfolio that allows us to do video conferencing, allow companies to communicate via phone, and then web meetings. Just like we're in today, we have a product called WebEx that allows our companies to share information, meet virtually, and connect with people all across the globe. And we'll talk a little bit more about WebEx in a little bit.
Nishan, can I trap you with a question?
Yeah.
You and I were talking beforehand, and you had mentioned that a prior guest of ours, the company was a past, either a client or a customer or in your network, but Ansys, who our student audience will be familiar with. We had a woman named Charmaine Lowe just give an incredible presentation. How would a company like Cisco work with a company like Ansys to give the students a visual?
Yeah, so absolutely. When Ansys is trying to basically enable their employees to work efficiently, to manufacture the products that they need, there's going to be different technologies they need to rely on. So what Cisco can provide is infrastructure to allow them to communicate effectively inside their company as well as externally. And they also provide technology infrastructure so that they can house data internally that's really near and dear to Ansys' heart, to make sure they're secure and they don't have anything that kind of can get into harm's way. So we help them securely communicate internally and as well as work with their customers effectively externally. And that's really true across the board. You know, I was trying to think of some customers that we cover in my current role across the East Coast. Anywhere from Subway, right, where we go and get a nice sandwich, to Rite Aid, where we go get some medicine for our kids or our loved ones, or Peloton, if our parents or even you guys here on the video are riding the bike to exercise. We work with all those different types of companies in what we call our commercial mid-market space, from Maine to Florida. And that's my current role. Cisco as a company is already 75,000 employees, as you mentioned, Gene, and across 115 different countries. So very much a global presence, trying to connect across the world.
That's a really cool visual you paint with that example, Nishan, the concept of partnership across companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really the foundation of how we continue to operate, is how do we drive that inclusivity and connection, not just within our own companies, but customers to customers, partners to partners. And so, Gene, if you can click to the next slide, that's a little bit of an overview of what Cisco does around the globe. And now I'll give you a little bit of a picture of who I am within Cisco and what I do and kind of why I do it. So I started off, as I mentioned, 14 years within Cisco. I started off as a sales account manager. So my job was in Washington, D.C. to take these portfolio products that I mentioned and go out to our customers and see what their needs were and how we can maybe sell and make a match there. And so that was a sales account manager role. And then I was in a sales leader role where I had a team of account managers that I was responsible for coaching, mentoring, and enabling so that they could be the best version of themselves. And that was across the East Coast from Maine to Virginia. And then recently I've stepped in this director of strategy and planning role, which is, again, the Maine to Florida coverage. And it's as unique as it sounds. There's a lot of different hats that can be worn there. But really what I'm trying to do is make sure that as a team, and we're about 350 people, that we're operating and functioning the right way and able to achieve the goals that we need to. And that goes from everything from how do we make sure our sales process is easy to work with, our products are easy to work with, but then also how do we drive a really strong culture across all 350 people, so everybody that works for Commercial East within Cisco loves being part of our team, wants to be part of our team, and feels like they can share unique ideas that allow everybody to grow.
Nishan, if I'm a student listening right now, and Cisco fascinates me. You just mentioned a team of 350 people from Maine to far south of Maine. Are those individuals concentrated in Boston or New York, or are those your 350 people all over?
All over, Gene. I mean, the reality is everybody is looking to source technology equipment. So we need to have people, sales and engineers, all across the country to be able to serve our customers the best way. And obviously things are a little bit virtual right now, but that's actually opened our eyes to how much we can be able to make sure we have the right people in the right places. But we have people in Minnesota, California, Florida, North Carolina, all over the globe. But our team, again, Maine to Florida. And even furthermore, Gene, I was so fortunate to join Cisco through our Cisco Sales Associate program, which right out of college, I was able to go into Raleigh, North Carolina for a year And basically, it was like an additional college year. I was learning how to become a sales account manager. I learned the products. I got sales training, how to be a good sales account manager. And that enabled me then to go and take my first role in Cisco in the field in Washington, D.C. So we do a lot to try and invest in people that are young and hungry and want to join the company, and then enabling them to be their best self when they finally go into an account manager role or an engineering role.
I love that quote.
Yeah. And so, as we talked about earlier, Gene, we all have our career, but we do it for certain reasons. For me, my why is my family. You've seen my 3 girls there. And everything I do at work is because of my family and what I want to have and provide to my family as well. And the balance of that is so key. I need to make sure that whatever I'm doing at work is balanced with making sure I'm a healthy version of myself at home. And I'm providing the same and representing the same values in my career as I want to represent for my family. And so those things are so closely tied for me as far as a passion. And because of how fortunate I feel to have this opportunity, I'm a son of 2 immigrants that came into the US in 1983. Both my wife and I feel so fortunate to be in the positions that we focus heavily on give back. And that's as small as looking at ways to give back into the community, but also focused on trying to do things like giving back. And we went and taught some English volunteer in Africa. We formed a charitable foundation here in Pittsburgh called Beyond the Berg, where we focus on trying to drive equality and support organizations that are focused on an effort. So it all is kind of a cycle of, we're all people. We're all trying to do the best we can. Work, play, and give back are the 3 pillars for me with family.
Nishan, I see that. I teach at the University of Pittsburgh, and what an inspiration you are to them. They want to give back already. Come right out of school, I want to give back, and you're a great example of someone doing that. I look at this picture, and you don't even. There's not many hours left in the day. True.
Don't worry. I've been following the Steelers free agency very closely. So there's always time. You can always find time. But yes, it's a busy schedule. If you could pop to the next one, Gene. So jumping in a little bit on diversity and inclusion, right? And why I really wanted to talk to you about this. Cisco and myself as well have a very strong focus on diversity and inclusion. Why is that? Well, there's the operational side, which says diverse and inclusive teams perform the best. They always perform the best compared to teams that are not. But aside from that, it's also the right thing to do, right? To make sure that we have an inclusive culture within Cisco and that we're driving that in our personal lives is really important. I have this quote here in my bedroom by Martin Luther King. It says, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." And I think if we all focus on that, as I mentioned, it's a very common theme between work and family and give back. If we lead ourselves with that, then we'll do the right things no matter what we do. And so by driving inclusive workplaces, we create a place to share ideas of different opinions, and we learn from people that are different from us, that have different viewpoints. And therefore, I know I grow so much faster when I'm surrounded by people that have a different background, a different viewpoint, and can help me to learn something new. And so that's why I love working at Cisco, Gene. If you can jump to the next one. It's because ultimately, Cisco's heavily focused on that. We have won the #1 place to work in back-to-back years, 2019 and 2020, which is pretty amazing when you think about all the companies that are out there that could win that award, to win it 2 back-to-back years. And one of the main reasons is because of our focus on diversity and inclusion. And so I would empower each of you to find a place to work for yourselves where you feel like you can be the best version of yourself and it represents the ideals and the values that you want to represent. Gene, you mentioned some students at Pitt wanting to give back. Find companies that invest in that. And I can feel confident to say that Cisco's heavily focused on doing just that. We focus on hiring diverse. So we have a metric that we're following across the company to increase our Black population within Cisco by 25%. We have pay parity programs where we're focused specifically on the gender gap. So we want to make sure women and men are paid equally. And so, I just have some information that came up last week where we have some people that are going to get a bump in their compensation because we want to make sure they're paid equitably for the job that they're doing, regardless of their gender, race, et cetera. So we're focused on as a company, and I think that's what makes it so great and so easy to work for Cisco, because all the great things that we do to try and create the equality. But also it goes to then what I'm enabled to do in my existing role, right? I talked about driving team culture and diverse teams. And so, Gene, if you pop over, we're going to talk about 2 different things, right? So one is, what is Cisco doing to enable the products that we sell to drive diversity and inclusion? And then what can we do within our own roles and what I do within my current role to try and drive that as well. So this is Cisco WebEx. So we're on StreamYard today, a very similar platform that we sell to companies to be able to have virtual meetings, share ideas, share content, and have video conferencing as well. And so we've recently had 3 different features that we've added that really drive towards that inclusivity conversation. One is real-time language translation, which means no matter what language you speak, no matter where you live in the globe, you can participate in a meeting with peers that speak differently, that think differently, that have a different background and live in a different part of the world. And that's pretty amazing, right? Because we're connecting people from all over the globe by doing that. 2 is speaker time restrictions, right? So we can say we're going to allot 2 minutes to every speaker because we know that some people may be a little bit shy to raise their hand. So we can go around the table and allow everybody to speak equally, so it's very clear about who gets an opportunity to participate. And then 3, you sell those emojis, right? Sometimes when somebody's talking, like right now I'm talking, it would be great to see somebody, they clap or put a thumbs up if they think it's a good point, right? And so having those emojis be able to float across the screen so we can get non-verbal communication back and forth allows us to feel like we're connected to people even when we're in a virtual format. And so those are some examples of how Cisco is not just talking about it with our own employees, which is so important, but driving it through our products so that our customers as well feel the same thing. Gene, I'm going to pop to the next one unless you have any questions on that.
No, I just think it's amazing that you could have multiple languages in one room. That translation capability is wow in capital letters.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the technology continues to grow, and it provides new opportunities to be able to allow people to feel like they can participate in whatever the meeting might be. And this is an example of something that we try and do with our own teams, right? So this is called the Voice of Commercial East. And this is something that we drive within my team here on the East Coast, where we said, you know what, this past year has been crazy and a little bit difficult. Let's try and figure out how we can get to know each other a little bit better, and promoting and providing opportunities for people to share stories and backgrounds of themselves, diverse backgrounds, religions, races, so we can figure out what we have more in common than we are different. And it's amazing, through every story I've connected something that I can find in common with that person that they've gone through in their past, that they feel in the present. When we've had people that have been Black, Hispanic, Indian, different religions, different backgrounds, learning challenges. I mean, it's been amazing to hear these stories. And the most amazing part is seeing people connect behind the scenes and feel like they have so much more in common than they have different. That creates a tighter team for us. That creates a better culture, and people feel like they're welcome within Commercial East and within Cisco. And so we try and come up with ideas like that to be able to allow people to feel comfortable and coming to the table as they are. And if you jump to the next slide, Gene, in Cisco, we say, be you with us, right? So we want people to come to Cisco and feel comfortable to be who they are and what they bring to the table that's unique. And that diverse opinion, that diverse background is only going to make us a better company because we'll think, act, and show up differently, and we'll have different ideas and grow from it. And so, Gene, I think I'm down to my last slide. I always try and set the bar a little bit high. And so hopefully this was a good cover of why diversity and inclusion is so important. But sometimes it might sound a little bit like it's a pie in the sky, like a dream that maybe isn't attainable. And I get that feeling. Sometimes I feel that too. But I think if we set the bar high enough, that we always can overachieve and get to those things. And so I actually have this written down in my room, and I said, a desire for my life and career to be defined by, remembered by my family, and making the impossible possible, the incomprehensible comprehensible, and the unbelievable believable. If I focus on those 3 things, then I know that I'll be able to do anything that I possibly can, or push myself to grow as best as I can. I think for those of you that are looking to, you're showing up today, you're listening to all this content. That's amazing, just at the ages that you guys are and girls are. So just reach for the sky. Never let anybody tell you differently to set your bar too low. And I know that we'll all achieve great things together, and it'll be a diverse and inclusive world for all of us. So, Gene, that's kind of my overview of Cisco and why I feel so passionate about diversity and inclusion. I'm happy to take any questions or hit anything that I may have missed as well.
Nishan, so I went to graduate school at Carnegie Mellon, and that diversity is a central tenet of the school. But you said a statement that was just so eloquent, I have to repeat it. Figure out what we have in common versus where we are different. Because if we do that, we strengthen our differences and we are so much stronger together. I thought that was just a very well said statement.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times it has just come true in the workplace, personally, where we sit down and have a coffee and talk about those types of things. You strengthen that partnership, and you can see it bleed over to just different conversations, different friendships, different professional relationships. And I think if we all focus there, it's going to continue to grow.
Nishan, we do have some student questions. Before we do that, maybe there's someone listening right now who is inspired by this conversation, but they're looking upstream and are nervous to ask someone, maybe because we're still in the very early stages of the Diversity and Inclusion Conference, just across the industry, across the globe. What advice would you give to that young person who is inspired but nervous to take a step?
Yeah, I would say I've been there. I understand exactly what you're talking about. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking to take that step. I would say, find somewhere where you feel comfortable. Start with the smaller steps that become the bigger steps, right? If you want to talk or open up about diversity and inclusion, find somebody you feel the most comfortable with, whether it's a parent, whether it's a friend, whether it's a loved one, and then look to expand it. I'll say I started off talking with my own family about some things, right? And how important that was to me and how certain things that made me feel about diversity and inclusion. And then it's expanded to our charitable foundation, where we focus on equality and making sure that people have an equal opportunity regardless of their place of birth, to the workplace, right? The more I have those conversations with myself, with our family, with our loved ones, and then furthermore, the more you'll feel comfortable to have it outside. So I think just start with the baby steps. Start with somebody that you feel like you could just open up to just a little bit, and then I think you'll feel some bigger steps come after that.
One step at a time. That's great advice. So Nisha, I'm going to jump to our student questions, and some of the first one you kind of hit on the presentation, but I think it shows the sparks that you lit in young minds. The first question is, how is Cisco a leader in promoting diversity and inclusion in the industry? I don't know if you would want to elaborate on anything you presented on, but I know you gave some powerful numbers.
Sure. Yeah. And I can just hit them again. I mean, one of our big focuses right now is increasing our Black employment by 25%. That's an area that we know that if we can get more of that type of population into our employment, we're going to be stronger because of it. So there's a focus there. I mentioned the pay parity program, to making sure that the gender gap that exists at times in the industry is irrelevant going forward. And so we focus on analyzing that on an annual basis. At the same time, when we're hiring as well, Gene, we always make sure that we're doing things that can help us enable the most diverse opportunity. That's including a diverse hiring panel. So if we were going to go hire somebody out for a sales account manager role, we'll make sure that we have a diverse panel assessing the candidates that would be coming in for that role. So we're getting different viewpoints and different analysis of who the right person might be. As well as just, we do measure ourselves on how diverse our teams are, and making sure that we hold ourselves accountable to those metrics going forward, and that we're always thinking about it. And I want to make one thing clear, Gene, before I give it back to you. Inclusivity doesn't mean it's just focused on those that are diverse. Inclusivity means an equal place for every single person, right? Regardless of their race, regardless of their religion. And that's the amazing thing, is when we all consider the table together with an equal part to play.
That's another very eloquent comment. When I look down, Nishan, it's me taking notes and gaining wisdom from you.
Well, I'll try and keep it up.
So our next question, and I'm going to read it, but you just answered it. I think it's such a good question. So I want to acknowledge the student that wrote it. Do companies have a requirement for hiring women and minority workers? And the obvious yes, based on what you just said.
Yeah, exactly. I think, we obviously look at it through a certain lens and see what can we do to continue to improve to make sure it's better, but give an equal opportunity for all people. But we absolutely have a focus on being held accountable for diversity and inclusion.
And I mean, I'm excited seeing these questions because they show me how minds were thinking. Does Cisco have a hiring target? Yes. And I love that you just gave that inclusivity statement as well. Yes, yes, yes. And the reason these questions are being asked, Nishan, is because young people are thinking about them. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's the greatest part about this is I've been in Cisco for 14 years. The younger generations are pushing us to think differently. And so I thank each of you for thinking differently, for acting differently, and advocating for this type of a conversation, because it's what's positioning us to have my leadership at the big Cisco all the way in San Jose to think and act differently. And so the most key message there is you are having an impact by the questions you ask, by the things that you're sharing into society. It's impacting how people that manage Cisco all the way at the higher ups are acting and thinking.
That's excellent. So more of a business related question. What is Cisco's primary product?
Yeah, so I would say, at the early stages and still today, our primary product is switching and routing. As I talked about before, connecting those computers and the infrastructure that helps the internet run. Those things, the switching and routing was the primary product and still represents the largest percentage of our portfolio. But Cisco has recently made a big pivot as a company to focus more on software. As you guys know, there's hardware and there's software, or maybe you don't know. And software helps this computer that I'm talking on run effectively and run seamlessly. And so we're developing more software into our products to allow our customers to be able to use the products that they have most effectively. And so we're coming out with more and more of our percentage of products focused on a software that can run on multiple different types of hardware. And so in its infancy, routing and switching, but Cisco is, in the future of Cisco, is becoming more and more of a software-based company across all different types of portfolio and verticals.
For students thinking careers with that statement, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Nishan, I view software as people who use the computer as a tool for their career, and hardware as people who are building the tools.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to segue. I think, ultimately, sometimes we build a product and it kind of is what it is. It's a big box and it functions the way it is. And software can enable it to work differently depending on what we need and continue to improve itself, right, over time. We can still use that same box, but the software continues to update, just like on our phone, right? On our iPhone, the software updates in the back end so that this product can operate in best possible and continue to grow with the times because technology is changing so fast.
Oh. Nishan, I'm going to guess this is a hard, maybe I would speculate our next question is a hard one for you to answer. Maybe it's easy. And I'm saying it based on your enthusiasm, but what is the best part of your job?
That is a hard question. Wow. I think that the best part of my job is just the people. I mean, Gene, I don't know if you've done this within your career, but every couple years you evaluate where you are and what you're doing with your current job and whether you should stay or do something different. And at the end of the day, I always come back to staying at Cisco because, one, I feel like I'm always growing. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I feel like I've already worked for 3 different companies within Cisco and I have different opportunities, and that is really important to me. But 2, it's the people I'm surrounded by. They all are interested in the same things that I just talked to you about so passionately about, with diversity and inclusion and creating a better future for our society and our kids. So the people that I work with, I can't tell you how many times I laugh during the day, and just being surrounded by people. When you spend so much time at work, and I mentioned how important family is to me, I want to make sure the people I'm surrounded by are great. And the people at Cisco just have been amazing to work with. And I built a lot of great friendships that keep me here as well. So growing in Cisco and the people, I think, are the answer to that.
I love that answer. So as we kind of start to wrap up here, Nishan, I'm going to shift back to the career exploration, the students who are kind of looking to get where you are, to follow a path like this. The first part is the question is, what does Cisco look for when hiring employees?
Great question. I think what Cisco looks for when we're hiring employees is, we're certainly focused on people that are hardworking, that can put their mind to a hard task and take on a challenge and have examples of how they have overcome challenges, so that we know that when things get tough, they're going to continue to put their head down and work hard, just like you all are in school today, and put their mind to task and make sure they overcome any obstacles that come forward. But most importantly, even aside from hard work, is just the attitude. How do they look at the role, the opportunity they have for themselves? And do they have an attitude of continuing to want to get better? The people that are hungry, the people that want to continue to make themselves better, those are the ones that we see come into Cisco. And they could be, within 2 years, rising up the ranks because of the focus and the energy that they put into it. So I think attitude and energy, but also that hard work and grit, those are more important in some ways than somebody having some technical background or engineering background. It's more about the attitude that they put forward. That's kind of aligns to my quote, honestly, Gene, at the end. I mean, it's the focus of making the impossible possible, the unbelievable believable. People that have that mindset, we know they can achieve anything, and we want them at Cisco.
Nishan, I love it, and I agree 100%. So I'm gonna go. Cisco's big tech, but this is a Gene question, not a student question. This is our final question. Cisco is big tech. I'm guessing I don't have to be a computer programmer or just a tech guru to work for a company like Cisco. I'm curious if I'm a student right now, just if you could rattle off a number of different majors or career types within a company like Cisco.
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, Gene, it sounds silly to say, but any career, any background is going to be welcome in Cisco because there's so many different roles to have, right? So certainly there's the people that help us operate and build these products, and these amazingly intelligent people that actually are product managers and creating the actual products we sell. But there are people that came from a marketing background like myself who are focused on sales. There are people in finance. There are people in human resources that are focused on creating the best place to work, right? So backgrounds on public relations, communications, advertising, marketing, legal, right? We work with the government and government affairs, and we work with our customers from a legal perspective. So there's so many different roles because of the 75,000 people that we have, that there's a place for so many people with different backgrounds. What's most important is what Cisco's focused on as a company, and how it represents itself in the world. But absolutely, big technology company, but plenty of roles across all different backgrounds.
Students check a lot of boxes with that answer, Nishan.
Great.
Nishan, on behalf of everyone watching, on behalf of everyone at Troutwood, thank you. This was fantastic and a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I had a blast. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to hearing from you guys in the future, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk about diversity and inclusion. Certainly something that's passionate to me, but also Cisco, and hopefully I did it justice.
You absolutely did, and I'm certain that you inspired minds today, Nishan.
Thank you so much.
To everyone tuning in, Troutwood Live, thank you. Be well.